Welcome into Overtime, presented by McDonald's. Dewey, Dailey, along with John Bruce for today's episode, episode 19. We're nearing 20. That one will come out a little later this week. But for today's episode, we're going to take a look at all of the league winners across the volleyball, boys and girls soccer landscapes and sort of compare them to how we thought the season would start out about 10 weeks ago. So it should be a fun little episode and see how close we were on our predictions back in August.
Yeah, I didn't do as terrible as I thought I did, so I'm pretty excited about that. I think we each had one pretty bad pick, but yeah, it happens. Next week, with this week being sectional play, it's hard for us to preview games besides games that are 100% set. Like, yeah, we could project some of these games that are going to happen, but that would be kind of unfair if, let's say, we project one matchup's going to happen and it just doesn't happen. So we're going to wait. We're going to review sectionals next week, but right now we're going to review the league play. Oh, we'll also preview district play next week as well.
And I think we're going to stick some golf in there as well.
Yeah, we got some golf on this one.
Yeah, it should be a fun little episode. And John, if you're ready to roll, let's start things off as we usually do with some volleyball, and we'll just get it rolling in the SVC.
Yeah, so for me this year, my preseason pick was Unioto, and what do you know? I was right. My champion, or the champion, was Unioto. They went 13-1 in the league, 20-2 overall in the regular season. Their only loss was to a really good Southeastern team. They swept Adina twice, barely. The second time as they held a pretty comfortable lead before, kind of falling apart before coming back and winning late in that one. For my, we kind of did like a player to watch, player of the year thing. I think with Unioto, you have to look at like an Ella Cutright had an outstanding year for them. Madeline Wetzel was really good all season for them as the setter and then kind of all around player. Also Morgan Daniels, I believe, will end up leading the league in total digs. I don't know if she will for digs per set, but she had a couple of really big games for them. And just kind of all around, Abby Marshall came on strong for them late in the year. But for player of the year for the league, for me, I actually went to Southeastern. I went with Josie Lougheed. She's pretty much the reason why Unioto lost their one match. Her 327 kills led the SVC. She was second in hitting percentage behind Adina's Brindley Preston. She was 12th in assists, 13th in aces, and also 9th in digs. All-around player, really made a big impact in every match that she played, leading the Panthers to a third place finish, which I think a lot of us, when Coach Coker left, I think some of us weren't so sure on how they would do, but she did not leave the cupboard bare as they finished third this year and have an excellent chance to make it to a district championship game, if not further.
Yeah, and then we'll look towards the FAC. Back in August, I actually picked Chillicothe, which it really didn't end up being too far off, as they only had 2 league losses, and both of them were to Miami Trace, who ended up winning the league for a second year in a row now. And also Chillicothe actually played Miami Trace. I think they took the first set in their first meeting. They finished second in the league, so I'm not going to beat myself up too much about that. I feel like I kind of wanted to go out on a limb on some of these, which we'll get into one later, which was a little too far out. But Miami Trace wins the FAC. They go 16-5, 10-0 in the league. They only lost 5 sets all year within the FAC. Now they draw the 9 seed, which is sort of low for a team that wins the league. I thought they're at Logan Elm.
Only 3 losses?
5 losses.
Oh, 5 losses. Okay.
16-5. They're at Logan Elm tonight, so hopefully if anybody from Miami Trace watches this when it comes out on Tuesday, it's not with a sour taste, and hopefully they're going on to the next round. The winner of that looks like they'll probably play Sheridan in the next round. But for them, it's a player that was FAC Player of the Year a season ago, and a player we talked a ton about in the previews with Addison Butts. She led the team with 301 kills and also had 25 blocks. Kylie Yeasel, only a freshman, had 681 assists. So, once again, as a freshman, going to have her 3 more years, and played a huge role with Butts having 301 kills. And that was something, I can't remember her name, but we talked about how their setter from last year, I wish I could remember her name, but graduated, and it was like, how big of a role did that play, or did she play with Butts having as many kills as she did, and could we see her numbers a little bit lower this? Well, that wasn't the case, and Yeasel stepped right in. 681 assists, undefeated in the FAC. Second time they've won the league in a row. Miami Trace. Hopefully they're able to pick up that. And once again, they are at Logan Elm on Monday. And one thing I did want to add about Butts is she missed the first 3 games of the season, and that was something. I think it was either in the first preview. I think we were maybe previewing the Miami Trace Chillicothe matchup the first time, and it's like, does she even go to school here anymore? Like we're so confused. And I think Derek was there, and I think in the interview after the game, she said, like, this is my first game of the year. Yeah. So, you missed your first 3 games. I think she had. I can't remember if because it was 3 games. I think they won all 3. I don't remember if they were sweeps or not. So she has like 8 or 9, well, not 8, but like 9 to 10 or 11 less sets than everybody else, and still leads the team in kills. So just shows what type of player she is for that team.
Yeah, and that's, for them, I think people just voted down on the quality of the FAC, but, they've got a chance to kind of show that the FAC is a quality league, as, sadly for them, they had to go on the road, which I would have thought they would have got a home game, but,
they were a seed away from getting one.
So for my next league, it was the SOC I, Southern Ohio Conference, the smaller division, which I don't want to say this was the easiest, but it was the easiest. Like, I literally didn't have to think about this in the preseason. Western did have a really good year. They went 12-2 in the league, but preseason pick was Notre Dame. They go 14-0 and win the league. 19-3 overall. They were the 2 seed in the Division 4 tournament. They've got an excellent chance to, make a run to the district championship game, if not further. And a big part of that was because of Brianne Hicks. She was my pick for player of the year. The junior led the SOC 1 and kills with 264, hitting percentage, digs with 270, and she was also second in aces with 50 and third in blocks. So pretty much just doing a little bit of everything. Lindsay Schaefer stepped up in a big way for them to be an outstanding setter. Only a sophomore. She had over 680 assists on the year. They moved some players around, and it didn't matter. They still go, 5-3 in the non-conference, which kudos to them, because they got and challenged themselves in that non-conference. I believe one of those losses was to Miami Trace in a 3-setter. I know they lost to Huntington, or they beat Miami Trace
2-1.
2-1. Okay, yeah. So they beat Miami Trace in a 3-setter.
Well, no, and I was gonna say, some of the questions about them with the loss to Huntington, who I think finished 5th in the SVC. Yeah. It was how good, and that was that's a common criticism of a lot of the SHAC schools. Yeah. It's once they get out of the SHAC, it's not that great. Well, they lost to Huntington. Okay, you beat Miami Trace, and they also played South Webster. I think we said last week they were the only team to take 2 sets against South Webster. So that's almost an accomplishment just by itself.
Yeah. So and also with Huntington, they finished 5th in the SBC, but they went 7-0 in the non-conference. Might have been 8-0, and they still got a pretty decent seed because of how good they were in the non-conference. And the SVC is obviously no joke. Unioto was a 2, Southeastern was 4, and Adena was the 5 in there. So those teams finished above them, and I believe Westfall did as well, who I think was the 8 seed. So it's no joke to lose in those matchups. But yeah, for Notre Dame, just ran through the league again, and a lot of that was because of Brianne Hicks, and hopefully they'll be in line for a big tournament run.
Yeah, I was gonna check to see what seed exactly Westfall was, but I could not find it on here. So I'll let you look that up, and I'll just go ahead and talk about the SOC II. Similar to your pick for the SOC I, I didn't really have to think about it. I knew them and Wheelersburg would be close, but in the end, I rolled with Webster, and it ended up being the right pick. They haven't lost a match all season. They've only lost 6 sets all year, and only one of those were coming in the league, and I believe that was Wheelersburg in their first matchup. But Webster finishes the year 22-0, 16-0 in the league. I believe it's their third straight title. I think I cannot exactly remember. I know last year, obviously, they shared it with Wheelersburg, and then 2 years ago, they won it outright. And I think when I looked on Max Preps, their 2020 season was a bit confusing. I don't think all the games were maybe uploaded. I would have to look at it again to verify that. But they draw the 1 seed as expected when you go 22-0. They'll either have Lynchburg or Wellston on Thursday. Obviously, that'll be at home. And then, with the players to watch in the preseason, I tried to go with players that were a little bit under the radar, but I didn't really feel like that was entirely necessary for South Webster. It was Bella Claxon, right? She leads the team in kills and assists, had 250 kills along with 472 assists. She's been a force for this team all 4 years, right? Her older sister, Bree Claxon, who I think was 3 years ahead of her. I think graduated her freshman year, and then you have Addison Claxon, who's a few years behind Bella. So there's just a line of them that are coming through, and some other players, Mia Crum, Michaela Raynard, and Skylar Zimmerman, all played crucial roles for Webster this season. And I wouldn't expect them to do anything less other than make a run at the district, and we could see them at Logan here in a couple of weeks as well. So congrats to them on an undefeated season, and we'll see how long they can keep it up.
Yeah, I watched Webster in that opening match at Adina, and they struggled the first 2 sets, and then all of a sudden came alive because I believe it was Crum that had the huge third set for them, and they ended up winning that one in 5, and then pretty much cruised the rest of the season. And Wheelersburg was no joke. I believe they only lost twice, right?
Wheelersburg, yeah, there were only 2 losses were to
South Webster.
Yeah,
and they went up and played Westfall, North Adams, St. Trace, played a tough non-conference and still rolled through it. So it's a heck of a league in the SOC II. And so now I'll move.
Westfall's an 8 seed.
8 seed, yeah. For the SHAC, Southern Hills Athletic Conference 1, which is the bigger of the 2 divisions. Kind of flip-flopped with the SOC on that. My preseason pick was Peebles after winning the SHAC II last year. But that was not them. They did finish second. The champion, the North Adams Green Devils, went 13-0 in conference play, but only 4-5 in the non-conference. So 17-5 for North Adams. Still a really good season for them, as most of their players are coming back next year. So I look for them to have a big time year coming up in 2024. Yeah, I'm getting real old because I don't want to say how old I'm going to be at that point in time. But for player of the year, I had Caitlin Berger or Borger.
I think it's Borger. That's how I've always said it.
Yeah. Either way, she's a very good athlete. The junior led the SHAC in SHAC I in kills with 291. She was second in blocks with 56 and fourth in aces with 64. She also added a team high 189 digs, which was top 20 in the SHAC as well. The Green Devils have a lot of options with Aubrey Mead, Paige Evans, and also Natalie Reagan. Natalie Reagan actually crossed the 1,000 assist mark earlier this season, which we highlighted. Only a sophomore. Evans and Mead are juniors, so they've got a lot to look forward to next year. I believe they were one of those teams that was pretty underseeded, but it was a lot because
I think they were a 10 seed.
Yeah,
I believe I'm pretty sure they have Fairfield in the opening round. So.
Yeah, they're a 10 seed. They got Fairfield in the opening round, and the winner would go on to face more than likely Nelsonville York, who's the 3 seed. But
and those are they're D4, aren't they?
No, that's D3.
D3.
Yeah, okay. And that would be at the Waverly High School gym. So, if that happens, that will be something we'll preview next week.
Most likely have on live. That's next Saturday.
The
not
semi,
not this coming. Well, I meant the finals.
Yeah, the finals will be on that Saturday. Yeah. So
we'll potentially live. Well, I'm assuming we'll live stream all 3 of those.
Right. That would be my guess as well. But so North Adams, really impressive year for them, and good luck to them moving forward.
I'd say they're probably the only league winner in our coverage area across all sports that drew a double-digit seed.
I would guess.
Once again, the non-league, and it's something we've kind of been harping on for the last couple weeks now. It's like the non-league has just been pretty rough for all the top SHAC teams. Downsizing a bit to the SHAC II. I'm just going to go ahead and gonna go ahead and say it. Picked Fayetteville to win the SHAC in the preseason. They finished 5-8. I think they were third in the SHAC II, third or fourth. I know they were below White Oak, and I think they may have been below Ripley as well. So it definitely wasn't the season I anticipated. That was really my one.
That was your bad one.
Yeah, that was my bad one. So Fairfield moves from the SHAC I to the SHAC II. They're able to take the conference. They go 15-7, 12-1. Their only loss coming to
Finished fourth.
Fayetteville, below Ripley and White Oak.
Yep.
Yeah. So Fairfield finishes 15-7, 12-1 in the SHAC. Now, SHAC, once again, a funny conference where when you play teams on the other side of the SHAC, you only play them once, but it still counts to your record. So that only loss came to North Adams. So they technically go undefeated in their side. No, we previously mentioned they drew the 15 seed. They're at North Adams on Thursday, so some SHACtion coming up here in a couple days. I think that's a sectional semifinal.
It's actually a sectional final.
So winner will go to the district round. For them, Joby Hatton, a player we've talked about a ton this season, leads the team and not only kills but digs as well. Had 313. That's a new single season high for her, only a junior, so she'll be back next year. And then Diggs had 427, once again a team high. And then a fellow junior, Kelsey Clark, 580 assists. So you're going to get your lead killer and your lead setter back for next year. So, good things coming up in the future for Fairfield, potentially a chance to make a run at the SHAC II and maybe even go undefeated against the other side as well next year. So congrats to them, and good luck here in the sectional final coming up this Thursday.
Yeah, that's our league champions are taking on each other.
Yeah,
but I just want to throw out that
North Adams.
I love the SHAC because in these other conferences that have two divisions, you don't play the other side. And
like for league play.
For league play. And
just for funsies.
I like the fact that only one team can go undefeated because you have to play the other side. And I also like that all of their stats are very available.
No, the SHAC's cool.
The SHAC has the best website. Shout out, not me, on if people sent stuff in, it would be the best. But yeah, the SHAC has great website, very attainable. They've got some good guys that call a lot of their games.
Nice.
It's just I like the coaches down there. I like the athletes and
very passionate,
passionate, very good. Small towns, you have a lot that are and it's all names that, like, whenever I was growing up, I know a lot of the names that are still there. And so it's just I like how the SHAC does things.
No, I always like.
I also like that you can switch divisions based on your size.
Yeah, it makes sense. No, I always love tournament time, especially like for us basketball, because that's really our only chance to get SHAC. I know we had it a couple times in our first big year of streaming. I know me and Dailey did. I know we went we did Fairfield at Eastern Brown one year. Now, don't get a whole lot. It's hard because obviously Good Guys is a lot of the big games.
Yeah.
It's not too often. There's two big games in the same day. And, for us, it's I think Eastern Brown might be the closest SHAC school, and that's from Waverly. It's probably 50 minutes away.
Right.
So it'd be tough to make a drive down there for a game that may not be that great. And all the good games are taken by Good Guys, so there's not a whole lot of opportunity, but we definitely take our chances when we have them.
Yeah, but the good thing is they are always they're always covering snow. So we'll tip our hats to the people that if you can always be there and take care of the kids, we're all for it. Yeah. So, but moving on to the Ohio Valley Conference, the OVC, my preseason pick was Fairland. I was not sure where to go because Fairland won it last year. They split with Gallia, and whenever I was looking back, this is much like your Miami Trace, where can't remember the setter that graduated its name, but Fairland had a really good setter that graduated, and I was like, man, they got to find a suitable setter, and we'll see coming up that they did. The champion was Fairland. They went 13-1, 18-4 overall. They actually were a 10 seed.
Really?
Yeah, they are playing Fairfield Union tonight on Monday night. That's a heck of a trip and heck of a
Man, that's far. That's
Yeah.
probably 2.5 hours.
Yeah.
2 anyway.
Yeah, and it's two teams that are 18-4 and playing in the sectional semifinal. It's just that's how loaded Division II is this year. But yeah, Fairland wins it, and when I go to my Player of the Year, like I said, they needed to find a suitable setter, and they did find a more than suitable setter. I would say an outstanding setter in Macy Workman. The junior led the OVC with 544 assists, was second in aces with 49. She was also ninth in digs with 199, which also led the Dragons. There was a couple options there because Kylie Bruce, I believe no relation, was also awesome.
Make the joke every time.
I'm always going to have to. Was awesome as well. She led the league in kills and hitting percentage. But I just went with Workman on this as, she was filling a role that was seemingly, they weren't sure what they were going to have, where Bruce, you knew what you're getting back with her. Her and Chloe Mayo at the net were going to be outstanding. And they were helped by, Workman being outstanding in the setting game. So for Fairland, we'll see how they do with tonight's match. Going to be tough to go up to Fairfield Union, but at the same time, their experience, they've won a lot of games, and should be a really good match to watch.
So our final league in volleyball was the Mid-State League. This one a little boring, but picked Bloom-Carroll. That's only because Bloom-Carroll's not. We don't really cover them unless it's a big match where somebody in our coverage area is playing them. But I picked Bloom-Carroll, which was the case for every sport. And then Bloom-Carroll eventually wins the league. They go 22-1, 14-0 in the league. They draw the 1 seed in the Central District of the D2 tournament,
which is pretty good to be the one in the Central.
That's pretty solid. And then just for a player, I know probably not a whole lot of Bloom-Carroll people are going to see this, but Madison Lacey, a junior, had 807 assists for them this year. So a great year for her. I went ahead and just threw Circle in here because they only had 4 losses, and 2 of them were to Bloom-Carroll. So they still had a great year, 18-4. They still draw a 3 seed in the tournament. They'll play the winner of McLean and River Valley. And then, a couple other players in the Mid-State League we talked about, or you were talking about, Christian Thompson and Fairfield Union a couple moments ago. I'd say that's probably your player of the year. And Christian Thompson just had a great year, and we're going to get another year of her next year as well. So, a lot of good athletes in the Mid-State League, but, best team as of now is Bloom-Carroll.
Yeah, so just going to throw out talking about Fairfield Union real quick. So, Christian Thompson is committed to OU. Warren also has a player that's committed to OU. Warren's the 5 seed, and Fairfield Union's the 7 seed. That's how good Division II volleyball is right now. So it's going to be, I'm trying to think of a better way to say it than I'm just going to say it, a murderer's row of teams to get out. Whoever wins that section or whoever wins that district will fully have earned it.
All right, so you want to talk a little golf now, or would you like to go some boys soccer first?
We're going to go golf. Let's just a real quick state tournament recap.
Is it over?
Yes, it is over. So we had 3 teams make it, which was the Westfall girls, Wheelersburg, and West Union boys. Wheelersburg and West Union each finished 12th. Both teams were 5 seniors on their roster, so probably going to see some turnover for them in the future, but still congratulations to both teams for advancing to the state tournament. As with only 1 team getting out in each division, it's a really big accomplishment. As for Westfall, they finished tied for 7th, but the 5th player scoring, which decides who gets that 7th place, they actually were bumped down to 8th. They finished 8th, but their top 4 scorers from the state tournament are all back next year. And I'm sure they have
just got to find a number 5.
Yeah, just got to find another 5. But on a little more positive note, their top scorer, junior Paige Weiss, went from 7th after day 1 to 4th, which is first team All Ohio. I believe it's the top 5 places are first team All Ohio. Then the second, I think it's the next 10 after that are second team.
It's like the only sport where production is quite literally how you there's no voting. It's exactly how you perform is how you're going to finish.
And that's what I like it. That, and I mean the running ones, so cross country and track, obviously, which we'll talk about a little bit in the spring. But Paige Weiss finished fourth. She had a really good second day. I believe it was a 76 on the second day to move up 3 spots. In Lucasville Valley's Cameron Phillips finished tied for fifth, which I believe also earned some first team All-Ohio. He was actually first after day 1, struggled a little bit in day 2, but still played well enough to finish in that tie for fifth. And they didn't have a playoff, so I'm guessing that it's just the tie for fifth will get it. Now, there were 2 more players that finished just outside of official All-Ohio status, which were Manchester's Taylor Ralston and Union's Charlie Lewis, who both finished 18th in theirs. And like I said, I believe it's the top 15. It might be the top 12 spots, but either way, both seniors played well in their last 2 days of playing at the state tournament, so have a lot to be proud of moving forward. So that's what we got for golf.
Yeah, so some boys soccer, same format as volleyball. Start off once again with the SVC.
Now, the SVC is kind of weird because you have to have 5 teams, and Southeastern late in the fall discovered they were not going to have a team again for the second straight year. So not an official league. So, we're going to go unofficial, but they did play everybody that had a team. So my preseason pick was Unioto, and the champion of the 4 teams was Unioto. They went 3-0 against the other teams in the SVC, 11-5 overall. A 3-1 win over Zane Trace was the deciding factor in that. For player of the year, there's a lot of options here. And I went with probably the safest pick of Lucas Haynes from Unioto. 27 goals and 7 assists, which would actually both be career lows for him over his 4 years. Yeah. So the Unioto offense took a step back this year, but they still finished 11-5. Only 55 goals for them on the year, where they were over 100 last year. But he's still going to be all over the OHSA record books. He was also double teamed anytime he touched the ball. But he was also the biggest in their biggest games. He had a couple goals against St. Trace in their 4-3 win over defending the state champions, Grandview Heights. He had a hat trick in the first half. So, he was outstanding when they needed it. But still, 27 goals, 7 assists is on a quiet season is still really impressive. He didn't score early in the year, which is probably, where, that's normally when he was getting going. And they didn't run it up as much this year, which was a good thing. So he's still going to be in the, likely in the top 10 in the state history of goals scored. He's going to be in the top 25 of assists career as well. So an outstanding career for him. Also in the running, where I mentioned, there's a lot of different players. Union also had Camden Smith, who stepped up in their scoring role for them this year. Cameron Thompson, who's been an awesome defender for 4 years. Along with Zane Trace's Jordan Harrington and Ivan Chavez. Chavez with 20 goals, 23 assists.
There we go. I was talking in the preseason, how often does people go 20-20?
Right. So I think that's the second straight year of doing it.
For him?
Yeah. I'm not 100% sure he got to 20 goals last year, but I know he had over 20 assists. He's going to be one that the Ross County record belongs to former Ohio State kicker Drew Basil from Chillicothe in assists. I believe he had 90 assists. Chavez is going to be close to that by the time he graduates next year. So he's had an outstanding career so far. Jordan Harrington, for them, he's had 10 goals, and he was a player that has been a 4-year starter and the defense for them. But actually, when Reese Allen, who probably would have taken the mantle of player of the year if he didn't get hurt in that Unioto game, he actually dislocated his kneecap, came back within a month. So he's back already. So in that time when he was gone, they had some trouble scoring, so they moved Harrington up front, and he did a good job scoring for them. He's back on defense now, which makes them very dangerous. But yeah, Reese Allen's averaged 2 goals a game for them this season, playing in 9 games. They've actually had 6 players with over 10 goals on the season for Zane Trace. So we could see a St. Trace Unioto district semifinal matchup next week, which could be
At St. Trace.
no, the semis I think would be at Logan.
Oh, at Logan.
Yeah,
Okay.
but it could be really interesting if it's at St. Trace.
It would make more sense for him just to be a ZT. It's a shorter drive for both. I mean, St. Trace doesn't have to go anywhere, and Unioto has to go 15 minutes
Play
away.
it at Chillicothe.
Or that.
Yeah. But it'll be. I believe it would be the first time they played in the tournament since 2004, if they would play, which was a Unioto victory on their way to the state tournament. So, but for either of them, I don't want to sound like a Debbie Downer. It's probably the end of the line, whoever wins that match, because it would be Marietta next, who's been a certified wagon.
Wagon.
Yeah. I don't know. There's a college football guy that uses it to describe teams that
Good teams.
Yeah, that just
Who says that?
Tom Fernelli.
I still don't know who that is.
He's friends with the Pardon My Take guys. So yeah, right now it says to be determined on where those matches are going to be for the semifinals. So I would guess St. Trace will be available for some, but probably not for that one, even though the finals are at St. Trace.
All right, so we'll look now at the FAC. In the preseason, picked Chillicothe, and for at least the second year in a row, they're able to capture the FAC crown. They finished 11-4, 11-4-1, 7-0-1 in the FAC. They had a 0-0 tie at Jackson in their first meeting. Now, didn't have any official stats. I looked on the OSSCA website and then Max Preps as well. And no official stats, but another great season for the former FAC Player of the Year and potentially this year as well in Caden Cook and company. They'll look towards the tournament now, which I don't know why I said that thing about league winners drawing high seeds. That's a little different for Chile because they're in Division I. But Chillicothe, now this is also kind of crazy. They draw a 20 seed, but they're not the underdog as they're going to host Logan in the first round, who I think was a 29 seed. Ooh. So there's just
that'd be a really good game, actually.
There's just way more teams, obviously, in the D1 tournament. Like a 20 seed in the D3 tournament. I mean, is there even a 20? I don't know if it goes that high. I think it might end at 18 or 19. But they draw the 20 seed, but they're at home in the first round. They're in the Central District of the D1 tournament, so we'll see how far they advance in, once again, D1. Is them, Logan, I think maybe just them and Logan are the only schools that have D1 athletics in our coverage area.
Yeah. Do we technically cover Taze? Taze Valley would be the other one. Yeah,
I don't think so.
It's kind of strange that we technically cover Logan, but not Taze Valley, which is really not that far from us. But yeah, for Chillicothe, the toughest thing for them is to have to go to play in those Division I tournaments. But the good thing for them is they really stepped up their non-league schedule, so they were able to actually get bumped to that 20 seed to where they get a little better choice.
A chance to actually like win a first round game instead of playing like some Olentangy Columbus school in the first round.
And I can remember, I believe it was when Marietta was still Division I, and this is going to basketball, but like Marietta and Chillicothe would like schedule, like would try to play each other in that tournament. So they would, at least give each other a chance to win. And I think with the thing with the Division I tournament, I'm going to rant. I wasn't going to do it, but I'm going to do it. So the Southeast District, it's NCAA brackets. So whatever seed you are, that's where you get put. Yeah, so it's NCAA style. They go, wherever you are seated, that's where you go. Every other district in the state is not like that. So that's where Chillicothe can say they're the 20 seed, but they're not going to necessarily play, I believe it would be like the 13 seed if you just went by that way. They can find a line and they can find a way to get themselves a home game. Mm-hmm. Well, I guess you don't get any money for it now. You get a little bit of money for hosting, but that's about it. But you can find a way. Maybe, let's say, this is going to sound terrible. You played the 1 in the 5 seeds, and you played more competitive against the 1 seed. Maybe you go, well, maybe we'll try to play them in a sectional final instead of the 5 seed, which you would think would be a little worse. But you can determine what way you go, where in the Southeast it's determined by coaches that vote or don't vote, because in the girls tournament, one of the coaches, not in our area that we cover, just didn't vote. So all of their votes were thrown out.
Oh, really?
Yeah, because all besides like I would say on the boys' side, because they also didn't vote for the boys either. Maybe it was the boys. It might have been the boys' side that didn't vote, but let's say it was like Athens was voted as the 1 seed. Somebody else might have voted for Athens, the 1 seed, so that vote might not get thrown out because they would have just voted in alphabetical order.
There we go.
Yeah, so good job. Good job. You know who you are. You're not watching this because we don't ever cover you, but yeah. Shout out to the coaches that actually do their job. Yeah. So moving on to the SOC I. My preseason pick, I thought I went out on a limb here, was Ironton St. Joseph. They graduated Zachary Johnson from last year, who scored nearly 50 goals for them. And I was like, I feel like they got some players, and you know what? Yeah, boy was right. Ironton St. Joseph wins the SOC I title, goes 5-0-1 with a tie to Valley. The second time around, they went 13-2-1 on the regular season for an outstanding year. Player of the year, I thought it could have been any of 3 from Ironton St. Joe. I went with Landon Rowe. Landon Rowe, Wesley Neal, and Brady Medinger. Medinger is the only one that's a senior out of those. The other 2 are juniors. All had over 20 goals, or 20 plus goals and 13 plus assists on the season. So if you went by points, which is 2 points for a goal, 1 for an assist, Neal led them with 57 points. Rowe had 56 points. Medinger had 55 points. So their offense was predicated a lot around these 3 players. But whenever I watched them in person, I felt like a lot of their stuff went through Landon Rowe. I think he's the stir that straws the drink, the straw that stirs the drink. Yeah. For their outstanding attack, as they soared to the top of the SOC I standings. I believe Neal led the division in scoring with 22 goals, while Rowe led them in assists with 16. So just an outstanding season. And side note, my interview with Brady Medinger might have been one of the best of the year. Like he was so good.
It always
makes
it a little easier.
Yeah, he was super well spoken, and you can just tell it's an easy kid to root for. And hopefully we'll be seeing St. Joseph, or we'll be talking about them a little bit in our district preview for next week. So
absolutely.
Yeah.
Down to, I should say, instead of downsizing, it's upsizing, whatever, to the SOC II. Preseason picked Wheelersburg. That ended up being the right choice. It was, well, at least when I made the pick, it was between them and Minford, but Northwest came on there as of late. And I think did Northwest end up finishing second in the SOC II? I know it was close.
I think it was Minford because they won that last game.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Oh, against Wheelersburg, right?
Yeah.
Right. So
that we covered.
But it was a lot.
Check it out on our YouTube.
Or don't. Either way.
Well, I mean, we struggled with some numbers on that one. That one was tough because of the lighting and everything.
Yeah.
But still, the first 60 minutes were a good game. Because then Wheelersburg kind of pulled their guys, and
I think it was earlier than that. I don't think
it was about 15 minutes in, so probably the first 55 minutes of the game.
But nonetheless, Wheelersburg wins the league 15-1-1 overall, 8-1-1 with a tie to Northwest, and then that final loss to Minford in their final game of the season. They draw the 1 seed in the D3 tournament. They'll play on Thursday against either Rock Hill or New Boston. Now, don't need to say a whole lot, but Max Higgins, what a year he's had. 46 goals on the regular season, broke the school and county career goal records. It's just an outstanding season for him. I think he had 49 total last year, so if things go to plan for them, should get over the 50 mark and get past. I'm assuming last year was probably his career high in a single season, so he'll pass that. And then, Nick Sylvia and Evan Hochstetler were two big pieces of this Pirate team as well. And, expect them to go pretty deep into the tournament in Division III. Great season for Wheelersburg.
Yeah, the only thing for them was they had at least 3 starters out at that Minford game, so just getting healthy.
And like you said, they pulled
most
most of their guys late, so it's just kind of a self-preservation.
Yeah, so
towards the tournament,
hopefully they can get healthy and make as deep of a run as possible for them. But like you mentioned, Northwest, I don't even know if you mentioned South Webster. South Webster had a good finish to the season as well. They beat Unioto last week, I believe on Thursday, 2-1. So yeah, it's a loaded league, and I just talked about Ironton St. Joseph. They actually were the 6th seed, and will have to play South Webster in a district semifinal if they get past Fairfield. So
the final standings: Wheelersburg, Minford, South Webster, Northwest, and how about Portsmouth West not finishing last?
There we go.
Waverly had to go 2-14 for that to happen. Portsmouth West 6 wins on the season.
Nice, good for them. I believe they got the 10 seed.
And also only 8 losses, as they had 3 ties. I bet 8 losses is the lowest they've had in a while.
Long time. But also, I think I mentioned it last week, that Waverly team's not that bad. 2-14 looks quite bad. And it's hard to say it otherwise, but, I watched them against a Westfall team that's not bad. Kind of underachieving for what I thought they'd be, but they pretty much dominated the game from the early going. And it's just when you have to play teams like Wheelersburg, South Webster, Northwest.
That's just a tough league.
Minford, that's 8 losses right there.
Yeah.
Except for Northwest, except for West, who did tie Minford. So shout out West on that. So congrats to them on, having a really good season for them. But yeah, so moving on, going to some SHAC.
Love it.
Yeah. So my preseason pick was North Adams. I was sort of right. I don't say I was wrong. 33.3%, because there was a 3-way tie at the top of the SHAC. Somehow none of them tied.
They all beat
each other. So Fayetteville finished 6-1 in the league with 10-3-1 overall, which is a surprisingly low amount of contests. Lynchburg-Clay finished 6-1 in the league, 7-3 overall. North Adams finished 6-1 in the league and 12-5 overall. I actually don't even have a player to mention for Fayetteville, but I will mention a player from a couple other teams. But my player of the year would be Cody Hessler of North Adams. He was second in the SHAC in goals scored with 22, led the league in assists with 19. He was second in the league in points, as I'll get to that here in a second. But as they forge their way into a tri-title, he really makes that North Adams team go. They have a variety of really good athletes on that team. A lot of those kids also play basketball on their team that won the district last year. A really good time right now in Seaman for the North Adams Athletics, as they have really been strong across the board for the last few years, and it looks like they will for at least a couple more years as well. Also in consideration, I want to give a shout out to West Union's Artebus Weist.
What a name.
Yeah, who led the league in goals with 32. We don't ever talk West Union. This is twice we've mentioned them on this show, as the golf team made it to state as well. So it might be West. It's West. So I'm going to say Weist. Woost.
I don't know how that compares to Maritz Klattenhoff and Joey Blue.
Yeah, he's getting a shout out.
Oh yeah.
But
good.
Yeah, so 32 goals for West Union, really impressive for him, as they had one of their more competitive seasons in a while. So good for the Dragons there. And also Lynchburg's Isaac Ayer, who had 8 shutouts in between the pipes for the Mustangs on the season. They won 7 games and they had 8 shutouts. So
they tied one of the shutouts then?
Yeah, it may have been more than that, because they might have given him a goal or two in games that they won. But yeah, so really good season for him in the goal, as they played a really tough schedule, and they went 1-6-3 outside of the league. So it just shows, and they got the 7 seed, so they were kind of rewarded for that schedule with not being seeded too low. So there you go for some action.
And then over, or I should say up, to the MSL preseason picked Bloom-Carroll to win the league. They were coming off of a league championship, kind of had the mindset that it was their league until somebody took it from them. And here comes Fairfield Union. It was the team that we said, like, if there was a team to beat Bloom-Carroll, this could be the team that could potentially do it. And what a historic season they had. They go 14-2-1 overall, 6-0-1 in the MSL. They do tie Bloom-Carroll, but Bloom-Carroll turns around and loses to Taze Valley, who Fairfield Union beats, and I think it was their third to last game because I think they wrapped up with Hamilton and Circleville. So they draw the 3 seed in the Division II tournament. They'll have either Alexander or New Lexington on Wednesday. You know what? I don't think enough could be said about this season from Caleb Redding. Tons of records set. He's now the single season leader in both points and assists, and also set career records in points and assists as well. So just an overall outstanding and historic season for Caleb Redding. He was first team All-MSL, MSL Player of the Year, which I was kind of surprised they released those rewards this early. Usually it takes like into basketball season for them to get all those out, but the MSL is already released, or I should say has already released their All-MSL teams, and a few other players from Fairfield Union that were named to this team were Aiden McCafferty, Caleb Schmelzer, and Cole Rowley. So, you know, when you have 4 All-MSL teams on your team, you're bound for some success, especially along with the Player of the Year. And, you know, they were able to, at least for me, kind of shock the league a little bit. Because, you know, coming in, I really didn't think anybody would beat Bloom-Carroll, but they're able to tie Bloom-Carroll and then beat the team that gave Bloom-Carroll their only loss. So a great season for them. You know, as I said, they're the 3 seed in the tournament, so we'll see how far they can go. And a pretty competitive division in Division II.
Yeah, and the good thing for them is 2 teams win districts this year, and they have matched up with Athens earlier in the year, so I see that as the most likely Division II district championship game over on that side, and that should be a whale of a game over at St. Trace here, and I believe it'd be next Saturday. So, you mentioned Fairfield Union, an outstanding program, especially the last few years in Reading is definitely a big time part of that. So for the last league on the boys' side would be the Ohio Valley Conference, the OVC. My preseason pick was Gallia Academy. Wasn't sure how they would do after losing such a good, they lost 3 players that combined for 97 goals last year. But they did return a lot of their defense, and in doing so, they were very defensive minded, and they won the league going 8-0-2, 10-13-4 overall. They won the league. I don't know if it's by a half game because South Point went 7-1-2, so they had 1 less win and 1 more loss. So probably a full game there. They get South Point as they, South Point had an outstanding season. I'm going to let you say the player's name.
Marit. I think it's Maritz Klattenhoff.
Yeah. Klattenhoff led the league in scoring, I believe, with 29 goals on the season. Had a really good year for them. But for my player of the year, I went with Beckett Camden from Gallia Academy. They were very defensive minded. They only scored 34 goals on the regular season in 17 matches. So only 2 goals a game. But Camden either scored or assisted on 26 of those goals to lead them to another OVC championship. They were the 6th seed. Congratulations, you're going to get to face Fairfield Union. But at the same time, it's a team with a lot of experience, a lot of really low-scoring games. So they're going to have a chance, whoever they play, because of how defensive-minded they are, and also with the scoring punch that Beckett Camden gives them.
So we'll look now to, unless you have anything extra to add.
I do not.
The boys' side, we'll look to our final segment of the episode with girls soccer, as we've done in the previous 2. We'll start off with the Scioto Valley Conference.
Yes. Preseason pick was Unioto. Pretty simple there. Champion was Unioto, 4-0 in the league, went 9-6-1 overall in the regular season. Once again, play a really good non-league schedule. For Player of the Year, Union had a lot of options at this spot. Aiden Dannison, Amelia, Greg and B all had big offensive seasons for the Tanks, but with the defense,
Tanks.
Yeah, I hardly ever call them the Tanks. Because it's not the official nickname,
Right.
but other people do. I was mad when I saw my Letterman jacket a few years ago and it said Sherman Tanks on the back. I'm like, Mom, why'd you let me do that? I would have just wanted Shermans. But for the defense, they have now gone 3 consecutive SVC seasons without giving up a goal, going back to the 2020 season. And because of that, my Player of the Year was Kaylin Bash of Unioto. She was their center back on defense. They only play 3 defenders, but she leads that defense. She has started for 3 years on defense and has yet to give up a goal. And another person to shout out on that is goalkeeper Maya Free. I know she's had some injury issues, so I wasn't 100% sure she played in all of their league games. I know she played in the last one, but she's been really special in the goal for the Shermans. I believe she had 16 saves in a loss to Chillicothe earlier in the year. Single-handedly kept them in that game. So I want to give her a shout out. Also, another shout out to Westfall's Kylie Mercurio, who had 19 goals on her freshman. Mercurio. Yeah.
I don't know.
Mercurio.
I don't know. I haven't looked at the name, so I don't know.
Yeah. So she had 19 goals on her freshman season. Gave the Mustangs a chance going into that final league night playing Unioto. They only lost that game 3-0, but it was a much better season for the Mustangs, and a lot of it was because of her. And Alyssa Wyman up top for them, scoring-wise. So I got for the SVC. Unioto actually, I believe, let me check their seeding just real quick. I just want to verify what it was because I think they got like a decent seed. But may have been the 7, which isn't bad for that non-league.
That's still a home game. Is it not a 7 seed?
Which I know I'm covering. Hey, if I can limit my gas mileage for the sectional finals.
Oh, yeah. I mean, absolutely. That's why a lot of those games that are in the same place,
Yes.
For us peasants who work on a game-to-game basis.
Yeah, they're actually the 6th seed, and they will play Fairland, which is on Thursday. Thursday night, they play Fairland at Unioto. They beat Fairland earlier in the season. Winner of that goes on to most likely play Jackson in the district semis at a place to be determined. Unioto actually lost 1-0 to Jackson earlier in the season as well. So
I think that was that week where Unioto played like Athens, Jackson, and then like somebody else. Somebody else.
It might have been Chillicothe that week.
Oh, yeah. It was like Chillicothe, because that was when Brock was on here, and Brock was like, if they go through this undefeated, then I don't know who's going to beat them. And I think they went. I think they beat.
They beat Athens.
Did they beat Athens? I thought they beat. They did lose to Chile.
Yeah, they lost to Chile. So they beat Athens on Tuesday. They lost to Chile on Thursday, and lost to Jackson on Saturday. So, but yeah, that was the week that Ella Pelfrey actually broke something in her neck against Athens. So they had a picture later, like a week later, they beat somebody and she was in a full neck brace, not like the Vince McMahon, like one you can just find somewhere, like one of those big,
can't move
like you ain't
neck.
moving neck braces.
Like move your whole body to look at stuff.
Yeah. She played last week. She played against West.
There we go.
Yeah. So, I mean,
go.
You want to talk about toughness, like that's toughness. And so her being back actually helps them a lot too. So we will see how they do as they'll take on a very good Jackson team, which I'm assuming you're going to talk about.
Yeah, speaking of Jackson, we'll go to the FAC and girls soccer preseason picked Chillicothe. They were the defending champs, had player coming back who was the FAC player of the year a season ago, and Allie Mathis also had Kiera Archer, who I can't remember how many goals she had last year. It was either over 20 or over 30. It was a lot. Really, both of those players had a lot, so I picked them coming in. They do not win the league. They finish second. Chillicothe goes 7-7-2, 6-3-1 in the league. They lost to Jackson once, and then I think they tied no, sorry, they lost to Jackson twice. And then I can't remember. I think they lost to Hillsboro, and then I believe they tied. Yeah, it's driving me nuts, so I'm just going to look it up real quick. I know that they lost to Jackson twice, and then they also lost to Hillsboro, and then they tied McLean. But Jackson wins the league. They go 14-1-2, 9-0-1. In the league, they draw the 3 seed in the tournament. They have Logan Elm at home on Thursday. Sidney Carpenter, who, what was it when they have? What did Brock say? Has the ball or it was like it was Sidney Carpenter plus ball in space or something equals game over. But she has 22 goals in 15 games, so right around. Well, not right around, but over a goal, closer to a goal and a half per game. Also had a team high in assists. So as a sophomore, leads her team in goals and assists. That's pretty good. And then Maddie Walburn also does a great job between the poles, or between the pipes, as you said a little earlier. It was the first FAC title ever for Jackson, and it was their first league title since 2016. So they just missed their first FAC title. I think 17 was the first year of that. So they
would have won the SEOAL that year.
Right.
So, the reason we joke about that the Brock thing on Sidney Carpenter was it was with like 10 minutes left in the first half of a game. It was it made it 2-1, and
which
then
was I think it ended up being the final.
It was 3-2 was the final because it was tied at halftime 2-2. That's why it was even more ridiculous. I believe it was Sidney Fain had the game winner in that game. But Carpenter's outstanding. I actually watched them doing game prep last Tuesday as they played Minford, which I'll talk about here in a second. Mm-hmm. This is really good. Like we're tying things in. That's almost professional of us. But I was really impressed with them when I watched them on Tuesday. My interview with Sidney Carpenter and Maddie Walburn was kind of funny because Maddie Walburn had to go to a band concert and was like very in a hurry. It might have been like the quickest I've ever like set up an interview. But she had such a good game. I was like, I got to interview her. Right.
That was a busy schedule.
Yeah. So like I thought the game was starting at 5. It would actually start at 5:30. If they would have started at 5, they would have got there in time to start the band concert. So why did they move it back? But and somebody, Brock, didn't tell me that it started at
those were like whatever.
Yes. But yeah, so it was a good game, and I got to get there because we were going to go stream the game on Thursday between Minford and Wheelersburg. So that's where I'm going to go in the SOC. My preseason pick was Minford. They ended up going 4-1-1 in the league, 9-5-2 overall.
Just a game off.
Just a game off because Wheelersburg went 5-0-2, 12-4-1 overall, beating Minford 4-2 in that game that you can go back and watch on stream. Now that game, Dewey talked a lot less. He seemed to pick it up from game 2, so maybe that's why he doesn't want you to watch game 2. But in game 1, and that's where I'm going to go to my player of the year. In game 1, Bella Miller was awesome. She had a hat trick in the first half, played her best in the biggest game of the year for them. She scored a hat trick in their 4-2 win. She finished the regular season with 23 goals and 7 assists to lead the Pirates in goals and points. Mia Vastine Vastine.
I think it's
sorry,
team.
Jim. Yeah.
I think it's Vastine.
Yeah.
I've heard you say it both ways.
Yeah.
And I think the PA guy at Minford said Vastine makes the most sense to me. I think I said it like that during basketball too.
Yeah. So I know her dad pays attention, and I like him. I like Jim a lot. He's a great guy. I just want to make sure to get their last name right. But she had eight assists on the year for them. She actually had the 4th goal for them on that night.
Yeah.
So that's where I went for player of the year. Also, shout out to Medford's Lexi Conkle, who led the SOC with 29 goals on the season. That one was a maybe point of contention, as one of them was the 3 seed, one was the 4.
And it was not the team that won.
It was not the team that won. Minford was the 3 seed. They will take on Peebles, who did not input a record.
Oh, that was the NR one.
On Wednesday, I believe. Yeah, Wednesday. In the sectional final, the winner will go on to face the winner of Rock Hill and Zane Trace. So congratulations to Zane Trace for having to go to Rock Hill. I know our buddy Trevor Thomas is going to be real excited about that trip, as it's a heck of a trip. But, Zane Trace has been playing better throughout the year. I'll talk about Rock Hill here in a few minutes. Wheelersburg was the 4 seed. They'll take on Northwest in the sectional final, and then they get the dandy of a game against most likely North Adams. They beat North Adams 3-1 earlier in the season. I was there. It was a really good game, but that's a North Adams team with a lot of experience. So not the easiest road for Wheelersburg, as also a district final would be against Lynchburg, which is
not
a wagon.
I hate it.
I know you do. That's why I'm going to keep saying it. So, yeah, there you go in the SOC. So,
all right, so we'll look towards...
Speaking of Lynchburg.
Absolutely talk about the SHAC now. In the preseason, picked North Adams. This was the only... I had 2 picks where my pick didn't either win or finish second. This was... Obviously, the other SHAC pick was pretty rough, but this one not quite as bad. I picked North Adams in the preseason. They finished 10-5-1, 5-2 in the league. They finished 3rd in the league behind Fairfield, and then obviously Lynchburg. Well, I haven't said it yet, but Lynchburg wins the league, so North Adams finishes 3rd. But Lynchburg 11-0-4, 5-0-1 in the league. They kind of had a weird 1-1 tie with Eastern Brown early in the season. That was their first league game, so I'll credit that outcome to the fact that it was their first league game.
I believe that was after like 2 weeks off, wasn't it?
Yeah, they had a weird stretch where they played like one game in 28 days or something funky. But nonetheless, they draw the 1 seed. They have Chesapeake, who's a 16 seed at home on Wednesday. And then, the player that we mentioned how she was kind of the main piece coming back for them. And in order for them to have a successful season, she was going to be the one that would have to do it. And, well, she led the league in goals and also led the team with assists. It's Jade Massey. She had 32 goals, once again a SHAC high, and then a team high 9 assists. Aubrey Slack, Allie Waits, and Bria McLean also played pivotal roles in the success of this team. Once again, drawing the 1 seed. Don't know if they'll make it quite as far as the team last year. It's not too often you make it to the Final 4, but you have a 1 seed, so obviously coaches voting in have some expectations for this team in the postseason, and we'll see how far they can go.
Yeah, it's an outstanding team, well coached, and a lot of players coming back. And like you mentioned, Allie Waits, she was their goalkeeper last year as a sophomore, and now playing out on the field, has done a really good job of transitioning into that role for Coach West. So moving on to the OVC, my preseason pick, this was my bad one. And it's like they finished 3rd, so it wasn't that bad.
You're calling that bad.
Right.
I was okay with North Adams finishing 3rd just based on my other pick. I can't even, I can't even give people, I can't even dog on people for picks now just because of that.
My preseason pick was the Pointers of South Point. They finished 3rd in the league at 3-4-2, or something's off on their record because they should have only played 8 games. So either way, they finished 3rd. I know that because the second place team was not close to that as well.
Could they have finished 4th though?
No.
They were firmly in 3rd.
Yeah. But the champion, who I for some reason didn't believe in, even though they did lose a lot of players from last year, was Rock Hill. They went 7-0-1, 10-4-2 overall. They are the 6th seed. They would have to play a Menford if they get out of the sectional round. For my player of the year, Emma Scott from Rock Hill. Mm-hmm. She led the Red people. I don't know if they're the Red women or Lady Red men. I don't want to say Lady Red men because that sounds counterproductive.
I would just say the Redmen. Just kind of in general.
Yeah, but she led them to a conference title with 22 goals and 15 assists. My pick of Jasmine Jones as the preseason player to watch. 32 of the 54 goals for the Pointers.
No, I was going to say, and I saw something whenever I was prepping for the South Point football game on Friday. I was looking on their athletics page, and it's going to take me too long to find it, but she definitely broke some sort of like scoring record or assist record. You can keep going, and I'll sit here and look for it. But.
Well, so I'm going to say that she probably broke their school scoring record. Although there was a time, I believe it may have been like 15 years ago. It was like 10, 15 years ago where South Point girls were really strong. And I think the worst part for them was at that time they were bouncing between Division II and III. So where if they were in III, they would have had more tournament success. But yeah, Jones, she had 34 goals a year ago, 32 this season. So I would guess that if she hasn't broken their career scoring record, she is very close.
I would tell you, but
yeah, it's okay.
Internet in Studio 33 isn't off the charts. So,
yeah, so it's all right. So
she had a great year, to say the least.
Yeah, we'll get on that one in the future. So hopefully we'll be talking about some of those games in district play on next week's episode.
Absolutely. And then to the MSL, once again, this was a bit of a boring league in terms of, well, at least in terms of the team who won the league, just because we don't cover them much. Picked Bloom-Carroll in the preseason. They end up winning the league. They go 14-1-2, 9-0-1 in the MSL. I picked Savannah Wild D. It's Wild with an E at the end. I'm assuming it's just Wild, but their stats weren't totally up to date.
Yeah.
They had them through 9 games, in which she had 19 goals through those 9 games, so I just threw her name on there. I'm assuming she finished the season pretty strong if she was averaging 2 goals per game through the first 9. Now, I will say the only tie for Bloom-Carroll was to Fairfield Union, who did end up having a great season. They go 4-1-2, 8-1-1 in the MSL. They do draw the 1 seed in the D2 tournament, where they will play Courthouse or New Lexington in the first round. So, although Fairfield Union doesn't win the MSL, more or less only because of how good Bloom-Carroll is, they only lose 1 game and then they tie twice, right? So they have a great year, and once again is the 1 seed. So they've got I would say, especially after the Bloom-Carroll game, their aspirations were more pointed towards the tournament, anyways. So as the 1 seed, we'll see what they can do in the postseason.
Yeah, they are. I believe I mentioned it last week, where Fairfield Union and Unioto have been pretty much the top of the Division II for a long time, and it feels like Fairfield Union has taken a substantial lead in that as far as just really good programs. And Unioto is still a very good program, but Fairfield Union feels like they're getting to that regional level every year.
And I mean, just look what their boys team did on the other side, and I mean, their girls team was more or less 1 game. And I did not look at the final from their other league games, but still a great season for them nonetheless.
Yeah, they've been outstanding. So, congratulations to them on an outstanding year, and I'm sure we will be talking about them next week as we preview the districts.
Had that big goal last year, and I think it was
it was district final.
District final, and I forget her name. It's Rathburn, wasn't it?
Yeah, I think so.
The corner. I don't know if it was.
It was a free kick.
It was from like the sideline.
Yeah,
I know that clip.
Was that on our?
It's not on the 10-second one that plays before streams, but in the preseason, Derek had me make one that was like 30 seconds long.
And it was on that.
It was on that one.
Yeah,
but it's not on the one that plays every stream we do. So good luck to them as we move forward, and that'll be it for this episode. Yeah, we've talked about just about every league. Obviously, we'll touch on football on Thursday, but a fun episode. Nice to look back and see. We've kind of been tracking it along the season, but it's nice to finally see kind of how our predictions panned out and how some obviously didn't pan out. A little worse for me, but it should be a fun time. Tournament time is always the most, because that's what you play for, right? You play for the tournament, and it's always the funnest time of the season.
It's heartbreaking, but also it's the wins mean so much more, and so it should be a great time. As we cover sectional play, we'll be out and about, and then once we get into district play, we'll be streaming and
I was going to say, just stay updated on Twitter, we typically announce live streams. Well, it usually depends, but especially towards tournament time, it'll probably be like anywhere from 1 to 3 days before the event. So just, stay updated on that and see if, we'll be streaming any athletics. I know we've talked about how pretty much any volleyball game at Logan we'll probably have, and then that triple header at or down the road at Waverly we'll probably have as well. So it should be a fun time for us. I don't know if you'll be tagging along with us, but I'm assuming it'll be Shane and I to all of those volleyball games.
I think I'll probably be at some soccer because that'll be district final days.
A lot of those are the same day. Yeah, a lot of those are the same day. It's a busy time for sure.
Yes, so I'll be doing some updating from soccer games wherever those are.
All right, John. Well, unless you have anything extra you want to
I do not.
Toss in, that looks like that will do it for today's episode of SOSA Overtime, presented by McDonald's.